Estamos ya en la transmisión en vivo.
Thank you all that are online. We're streaming now. We thank everyone that's connected on the EPRI team. We are streaming on Facebook here in Mexico and for Latin America. We're very grateful to the team in Philippines that's providing their support. And we also thank the trust placed in us by our friends in the Yaqui community that are searching for victims of disappearance in their community and and putting on this press conference, the mothers and other people that are searching for the disappeared, and also searching for people that are not indigenous that were with them at the time. And so in this press conference, we will have Anabel Carlon, who is helping us here with the translation, and people supporting her. I'm Citlali Hernandez Assad. I'm the coordinator in Mexican for Indigenous People Rights International, working for the rights of Indigenous people. And we are organizing this press conference. For the journalists here, we ask that any question that you have, any intervention, please, at the end of the program, we will have time for that. Annabella will also be letting us know of any messages that come through on Facebook so that we can read those and comment them among all over the group. Also in the town of Bacum. Annabella, whenever you're ready, we will begin. Thank you, Citlali. I want to thank particularly the press for being here so that the words of the families can be heard. Dear journalists and media, can a mother, a family, a son endure such uncertainty? Today is the 105th day since the 14th of July without Martino Flores, Aliano Marínez Zavala, Valencia Romero, Raúl Pérez Solo, Fabio, without Fabio, without all of these victims of the disappearance. It's unimaginable, the pain of not knowing where one of your family members is. This is not the first time this has happened inside of the Yaqui community, and certainly not in this state. Proof of this is the collectives of different groups coming together to look for their family members. The state has come forth with a DNA identification of these members, the Yaqui community. The family also made public their lack of trust with their declarations that did not have basis in scientific information. They responded in a very political manner to the questions of the family members. Yesterday, the 24th of October, they explained what happened in these events without submitting an actual report concerning the case. They told us that this will be taken forth to the commission, but as individual victims, these individuals will not be added to the case. We have not had access to the physical document. And so we had not heard until yesterday anything from the state. This prevented us, the family members, to have information to have in the case, in the file of this case. They told us that we had to be very patient with the investigation. That's very understandable. The family members are the first people, the number one, interested in having the disappeared be found, and so that justice can be created. Yesterday, the director of homicides and disappeared explained that in due time, organize a meeting, perhaps for next week. How can we endure this uncertainty of not knowing what happened to our family members? That's why, in the exercise of searching the truth, the direct victims demand that this next meeting for next week include the handing over of the reports and the evidence that's identifying these bodies, that experts explain the findings, that there would be an independent forensic analysis, and also that we have access to that report, that we understand what are the different channels of investigation that the state is carrying forth. Here it is, our colleague. Good day to all. Yesterday, in the previous reunion with the family members of the disappearance victims, in the reunion with Director Atapia, there was important points put forth. As Annabella was saying, one of them was the right to the truth. Yesterday, they told us in very general terms that there are capture orders against the perpetrators, but this is just general information we have, and that next week we would get more specific information. Yesterday, we also demanded that the government work with the family members in this case, since the person that was put in charge of the investigation has not engaged with us directly. There was a group of jurists that were put forth to investigate the situation. There's also information given to us that objects related to the victims were found. We were told that these materials have not been handed over due to the ongoing investigation. Another issue that came up yesterday was our concern of how many people have actually been found. Also, what were the type of tests that were carried out to ascertain the information. In each case, it was Carlos Rodriguez, the archaeologist, and then a civil chemist and the forensic department. They added to their. We understand that the samples that were analyzed as 164 contain genetic material. There, we received a very detailed account of how these were handled and told that these materials were handled carefully. We also demand an economic support so that we can continue our search and also that we can secure our health for the family members, for the people that are involved in this, that in the last 3 months have not been able to have income due to the disappearance. We ask that there not be any more delays in the proceedings of these events. Yesterday, we were told, and we had our first contact with the Executive Commission of the State for Victims with Jose Acuna, and thanks to the Commission for the investigation, Tapia gave us information about how things would go forward. Another thing that we demand is psychological support for the victims and people affected by this case. We ask for this psychological support resources. We were told yesterday that psychologists will be brought in and that this would happen by the end of this week. We spoke yesterday our dissatisfaction with the process, particularly the measures that were taken to prevent us from having access to the case file. And so we ask for further understanding of what is happening in terms of the search. We have not had direct contact in order to understand the technical aspects of the forensic analysis. And here we're looking for the support of CRI. We're going to have them involved with this. We signed also an authorization, all of the family members, so that they would have access to the information. Those were the issues that came up yesterday and were put out there for as questions to the different agencies of the federal. Roberto Tapia was there as their representative. I am Argel Avario, son of one of disappearance, forced disappeared victim here in Bacum. We're all together in this. Thank you very much.
Creo que es todo lo que se quiere
I believe
expresar.
this is everything that we had to put out there to say. We thank you all. And so we can open this up to questions. Anybody from the press? If there's anyone there that has a particular question, we ask that you step up with.
¿Hay alguna pregunta?
Is there any questions?
Sí, tenemos una solicitud de palabra de.
We have a request from Celeste Rivera to speak. Please go ahead, Celeste.
Te pedimos que te presentes de qué medio.
And we ask that you introduce yourself and let us know what outlet you're with.
Tienes activado el micrófono.
Do you have your microphone on,
No, ¿verdad?
Celeste? Doesn't seem like it.
¿Puedes apoyarnos a activar el micrófono?
Ivan, could you help us to turn on that microphone?
Iván.
Ivan, are you there?
Un segundo, por favor.
Just one moment.
Listo, ya está habilitada Celeste.
Gracias, Alanca. Adelante, Celeste.
Thank you, Alenka. Go ahead, Celeste. Please, can you tell us what media outlet you're with? Hi, my name is Celeste Rivera. I'm from the Yaqui, a periodical newspaper here in Sonora. I would like to ask concerning the people in the community in La Luma, in Bacum. A lot of time has already passed. I got here a little bit late. The purpose for putting this forth, what is the purpose? And also concerning the second investigation, do you have a time to go over the second studies of the ADN? And do you know when this will happen? It was stated that it would be done through the National Institute of Indigenous Communities that would be handling this. We're talking about the second DNA analysis of the bodies that were found in the Chiquilite Ranch near this community. Annabella, please go ahead. Why are we doing this? It is due to the fact that as family members, we have not had access to the case information. We only know what you already know, the media outlets. We don't know the report. We don't know what channels of investigation are being pursued. If there is a conclusion, then there hasn't been an expert that's been here to explain this to us. Yes, yesterday, some people were here yesterday, but the only thing that they said was just very general information. And so that takes away from the authenticity and sincerity of this case. What we need is an expert that can explain the conclusions, the forensic, judicial conclusions can come and explain in detail so that we can understand the situation. That's why we are here.
Gracias, Anabela.
Thank you,
Le vamos a dar la
Anabela.
palabra a mujeres
We'll move to
Sonora. Pedirle
women,
a Iván si puede activar el
inquiring women in Sonora. If you could please activate their microphone,
Adelante. Puedes
please go ahead.
presentarte y de qué medio
If you could introduce yourself and
Hola,
state
buenos
what media
días.
outlet
Soy
you're with.
Cristina Gómez del periódico La
Hello, my name
Jornada.
is
Se me quedó
Cristina
el Zoom
Gomez
ahí
from
con otro
La
nombre,
Jornada.
perdón. Nada
I'm
más,
here on
pues
Zoom with by a different name.
preguntarle, hubo
Excuse
una
that.
reunión
I just have a
inicial
question. In the
de las
initial meeting
familias víctimas
with the
con
families,
con la
the
fiscalía.
victims'
Ahí
relatives
ellos
with
aseguraban
the
y lo dieron
prosecutor,
así por hecho
there
rápidamente
it
cuando
was
identificaron
made known and
ropa,
inferred
pulseras,
about the clothing, the jewelry,
accesorios que
all
correspondían
the
a algunos
accessories,
de los
the apparel
desaparecidos. Pese a
that
esto,
belong to
ustedes
some of the
buscan esta
disappeared.
segunda
Based on
examen
this,
de
you're looking
ADN.
for a second exam for DNA? Yes, definitely. It has to do with that. But as we had mentioned in media, this type of results were going to be coming much later, 3 months or so. But as we've seen, and we connect this with the visit of the Mexican president to the Yaqui territory, what happened is it seemed that they wanted to speed up this justice process. And 2 days before the president comes, they called together the family of the victims in Bacum to tell them that there was a match with 5 of the disappeared people. And just like that, that's how they told us, without a scientific explanation or background. And so the prosecutor, if we don't have information from them that are secure and clear, then we cannot believe what they're saying. Thank you, Anabela. Is there anyone else out there? Well, but before that, I want to read some questions. Juan Pedro Matena from Proyecto Urenta, do you have a date set for the next meeting where you will be informed on updates of the investigation? We still don't have a date. Roberto Tapia, who's supposed to give us the date this week or next week, there isn't a set date, but we do have that contact with Roberto Tapia for that. Another question from Lina Buena from Diversa Bueno in Sonora. We opened up to you. Go ahead, Lina. Can you hear me? Yes, we hear you. Good day or afternoon to all. I just want to make a brief question from Ciudadela or Arbay, the gentleman, Arbayo. If you could tell us, when there's a commission, a justice plan that is being put forth by the federal government, I suppose that the National Guard is also in the communities and is involved in the investigation of the disappeared. Are there any responses? Do we consider this here in the communities to the process, or has it been a case that you've asked them for reaction, or is it that the loss of these humans is not being considered? I'm just asking for your general response to the situation. Okay, well, the plan for justice is good because it's well programmed, but there's also injustices in Bacum. I think they should also be focusing on what's happening now and not wait another 100 years to have justice concerning our disappeared. I have not read completely the justice plan, but I understand that there's nothing that mentions the 10 disappeared individuals. I want to say that we do have the support of the community guard in Serena and different security organisms are supporting us. But as far as the written plan of justice, I understand that there's nothing clear there. I understand that it's a reparation for harms, restitution for goods and earth, but it's not actually focused on the current situation. Annabella, would you like to respond and invite any of your friends there? If anybody wants to join, please let them know that they can speak in their own language. I don't want anyone to feel intimidated by the cameras. Please invite them so that any of them can have the word at any point. Please go ahead, Annabella.
Bueno, por lo pronto, mientras están pensando,
Well, right now and what we're thinking, even though there's a just plan for justice, the justice system should not just limit itself to what was done to our ancestor. There should be a focus on the current situation. And it looks like they want to disconnect this plan of justice from the current situation. The justice mechanisms should not be choosing particular situations. They need to make sure that all pathways are opened up to mechanisms for justice. We also do want justice. What else can we ask for? That's what my friends here are saying. Thank you very much, Annabella. We have also a question coming in from chat from Ortiz, reporter from Mexico City, the Lista. I'd like to ask about the issue of the meeting next week. Is there a phone number where I can connect with the family members after this conference, whether it's a direct contact or someone in Indigenous Peoples' Rights International? And Alanka, I think you also have an intervention to make. If you could turn on your microphone, we can have access to that beyond what you've put into the chat.
Adelante, Alexis.
Please go ahead, Alexis.
Adelante, Alexis.
Please go ahead, Alexis.
¿Escuchan?
Ahí ya te escuchamos.
Yes, we can hear you.
Sí, como les comentaba, yo soy reportero
I
aquí en la
was
Ciudad de
saying I'm a
México.
reporter from La Lista here in Mexico City, and I'd like to find out from you all, just so we can have some context for our readers, if you could talk about the situation in Sonora where these disappearances took place of these people. If you could let us know what is the security situation that is occurring there, and if there's also been other abductions prior to this, and also what is the behavior from prosecutor office in relation to these disappearances, because as was previously mentioned, there are remains that have been found and identified, and if you haven't been access to these files, what else is going on that generates this lack of trust? Please go ahead. Well, the security situation, it's not just here in the Yaqui territory, and these are not the only disappeared people. The disappearances have been going on since 2010 up until now. We have observed that there's one disappearance per month in some of the communities, and already this year, 3 other people have disappeared in a period of per month. But there hadn't been a disappearance event of this magnitude, certainly not in the Yaqui territory. In Sonora, it's not easy, the situation. We have talked about the collectives of people searching. I don't know what else I can respond to your question. As far as how is the attorney's office carrying forth, Yes, they are stepping up, and there are meetings, but despite the fact that it's a prosecutor's office, they are not experts in anthropology or forensic science. And so we need, that doesn't give us political answers, but questions that are coming, that can be given to the family in a language that is detailed, that really gets into the details of the situation and leaves no doubt about the information that is being put forth. Thank you, Annabella. Now we have Maria Echeverria from the newspaper The Parcial. If you could please turn on the microphone. In chat, she says she's interested to know if the authorities that put forth these petitions gave a date of when they would be responding, and if the families have already received the support to, in terms of their demand for a second analysis or report of the DNA. Go ahead. There isn't an exact date. It was said that there would be a date put forth by the end of this week. That's what the attorney office said to us, who've been working closely with us. We had some demands for them yesterday, and finishing the reunion, we went to Bacum to authorize and sign documents so that we would have access to this, so that would reach the PRI and also the forensic team in Guatemala. So we are being heard in terms of our petitions. Yes, indeed. There isn't a date, and in terms of resources for support, we've been told that the National Institute for Indigenous People will be supporting us in this situation. And so what do we want? We're making this press conference to proclaim the situation of not having the necessary information and be able to understand the truth, and also that the concern of the families can be done away with so that they can feel in peace and begin to understand this necessary information to know what's happened with our family members. Another thing to add, the INPI is going to support us financially in terms of the second analysis. We were given information that we didn't accept because we want it to be a laboratory that is not connected to state or government agencies. So INPI is there to support us with this as we turn to the genetic materials. Would you like to add anything, Maida, to your question?
Adelante, Mayra.
Please go ahead, Maida.
No tiene micrófono, no funciona. Con eso queda bien, Mayra. Muchas gracias.
There's no microphone, but she says that's fine. We have a comment here from Enrique Talema. He's an investigator from UNAM. I want to express my solidarity with the family members of the victims. I want to know how the security situation has been carried out by the government in terms of searching the farmlands and rural areas in the sector. Yes, the entities and traditional guard, they have been coordinating in terms of carrying forth the searches. It's in these days, these different entities have found some signs, some garments, and in the Chichilinqui ranch, we found these garments. In other places, there were some garments that were also located, but they were not recognized as belonging to the disappeared. Thank you, Annabella. We have a question here from Facebook. It's Nora Bucio from NBC News. Are there any advances or updates in the search? And is there a phone number or to connect us to these authorities? This is one of the questions we also have for the district attorneys or for the attorney's office. We know that some remains were found, but we don't know anything more particular. We know that there was an order for capture, but it's not clear to us. It's so general, the information that's been given to us. And so that's why we want to have access to the file case and that someone explain to us and the family members how the investigation is actually going and what are the tracks that are being followed. Thank you, Anabella. We have another question from Judith Bustamante from Red News, Network News. Do you have any suspicion about these people that are doing the disappearances? Are they interested in appropriating the Yaqui territory? This is coming in the footsteps of information that there are threats in the area. Yes, indeed. And this is exactly why we need to know the documentation so that we know where this is coming from, where these the disappeared situation, what gave way to it, not just in Bacum, but also in the Yaqui territory. That's what I can say to that because we don't have access to the investigation file. Something else that's very clear is that days before the disappearance of our family members, there was a large quantity of drugs that was confiscated in the area where the disappeared were. There's one last question here. I'd like to know if in the disappearance at Bacum, whether the president or governor has stated that they will be visiting the actual territory. From the president, we haven't had any word. The governor, yes, he said that he would be willing to visit or that the family members would meet with him, that the doors were open to us, but that's all that we heard. We know that there's a willingness there, but that's it. The family members also tell me that there was a petition sent to the president, signed by all, and we have not had a direct response to the family members. Thank you very much. So those are the last questions that we've received in Facebook, in the chat here on Zoom. And Aura Garcia, please go ahead. If you could please tell us what outlet you're with in your introduction. Please go ahead. Hello, all. Good day. I'm a reporter, a radio reporter in Mexico City for Inverno News. I'd like to ask, I have 4 questions, and one clarification. In the press release, it said that there were 9 people disappeared, and now I'm hearing that you're saying 10 here. Is 10 the actual number? That's my first question. The second question is, if you could share with us the names of the disappeared, that would be so that we can't speak specifically and not just in a general way about who these people are. And also, I understand that there's distrust in relation to the results given of the DNA results. This lack of trust, is it due to the fact that there wasn't a previous contact, that you weren't clearly given clear explanations of what was going on, of what had been found, or is the lack of trust coming due to something in the past before the disappearances? Thank you for your questions, Aura. Yes, it's 10 people that are disappeared. 7 are from Bacum, 2 are from Obregón City, and the other person we know that is disappeared. They weren't disappeared at the same time, but we don't have a lot of information, but we include them even though their family isn't here with us, just because we don't forget about them. There's another human life out there that isn't accounted for. And so that's why sometimes we mention 9 and other times 10. As far as the name, we're going to put here on the chat
Leocadio Galaviz Cruz, Juan Justino Galaviz Cruz, Braulio Pérez Sol, Benjamín Portela Peralta, Gustavo Acosta Hurtado, Artemio Arballo Canizales.
¿Quieres responder lo que falta, por favor?
Would you
Gracias.
like to respond to the other questions? In relation to the lack of trust, well, of course, it does stem from a long time back. The justice system has been applied generally against us and not to support us in our favor, even though many times we are in the right and we are the victims. They
Entonces,
don't see it this way. And so for Bacum, this generates distrust. There's the case of Fidel Intama. Even though he was innocent, he was charged with homicide for something that he did not commit. How are we not to distrust? This time, it took a lot of work to be able to just make these charges and making them public and to be able to have some trust towards the prosecutors. We know that the system is supposedly changing or is doing what it should be doing, but these changes are not happening quickly enough. And so the trust is not also coming overnight. Thank you, Annabella. We have two more questions. Question from Maria Verdugo from Cajamen News. When are you going to receive the bodies that were recovered? Is there going to be how long will you be waiting for this second DNA analysis? When will this information come out? You mentioned previously, nothing is complete. We have that for sure. We haven't received anything. And when they haven't clarified the terms or the time spans, that we'll have to wait before we can have access to the conclusions. If the conclusions have been registered with the Office of Public Offices, so that we can have access to this information. And so we're still waiting for the remains to be delivered to us, even though we also are aware that the second analysis is being carried out. We have to be 100% sure that these are our family members. Thank you, Annabella. The last question here by Mayra Echeverria from The Impartial. I'd like to know if you are in agreement with what the authorities have done, and if not, what would you like to be carried out? How would you like for them to proceed? Up until now, in terms of the search, well, you can't say yes or no, because the results that we await are that our family members be returned or to have some remains. But if we don't have this information, we're not going to be satisfied. Thank you very much. Annabella, there's another question from Women in Sonora inquiry, our friend from the Jornada News, if I recall. So please go ahead.
Así es, gracias.
Yes, indeed.
La
Thank you.
pregunta es, ¿habían
question
reconocido,
is,
bueno, la fiscalía
have you
había dicho que había
recognized,
identificado primero
well,
a 5 cuerpos y luego a 2,
The
sumando
prosecutors
a
had said
7,
that
y
5
refiriéndose
bodies were
específicamente que
identified and
eran
then 2,
los
so totaling 7,
desaparecidos de Loma de
and
Bacum, es
signaling
decir,
that
a los
these were
otros
the
3 que son
disappeared
externos
people from
al
Bacum.
pueblo, a la
And so
nación
these 3 other
Yaqui,
that
no
are
los han
not
identificado.
from
Eso también
the
es parte
Yaqui
de las
community,
sospechas que
those
ustedes
had
tienen.
not been identified. Does that also contribute to your distrust or suspicions? No, not necessarily, but the remains that were identified up to date are of 6 Yaquis and 1 person not from the Yaqui community. And there's still 1 Yaqui individual and 2 non-indigenous people. And so these are remains that they have, and we have not been able to see them
Uno sabe que tiene derecho de
up until
acceso
yesterday
a esa información
in a photograph.
importante para
And
disipar
so not having access to such important information to help us with our doubts and our pain,
principal motivo, el no tener
this
acceso al
is our main concern, not having access to investigation. And the last couple of weeks that we've participated in the search, we've looked and searched with our own proper hands for these.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you.
Hay una pregunta más en WhatsApp
There's another
por-
question
en Facebook de
on
Susi
Facebook
Arana.
from
Pregunta,
Susie Arana.
¿existen más en
She
calidad
says,
desaparecidos
are there a better
o
qualified person?
localizados? Y si siguen las búsquedas
And
restantes.
are this, is the search ongoing for the people still out there?
continúan las búsquedas.
We suppose that the searches are ongoing until they come to
Pero sí continúan las
conclusions about the 10 individuals. So
¿Podrían dar
yes, the
nombres
search
de las
continues.
personas que,
Could you
eh,
give the names
han sido identificadas
of
con
the
las
people that
preguntas
have
de esta
been
persona?
supposedly identified?
Claro que sí.
We have a question here.
Exactamente identificados
The supposedly identified
Alario Molina Zavala,
are Alario Molina Zavala,
Sombra Miranda, Fabián Valencia Romero, Braulio Pérez Sol, Martín Hurtado Flores, Juan Justino Galaviz Cruz y Gustavo Acosta Hurtado. El último es no indígena.
the last person I mentioned is not
Muchas
indigenous.
gracias, Anabela.
Thank you very much, Anabela. So with that, I think we have gone over all of the questions here on Facebook and in Zoom. I want to thank everyone that's joined us today and share with you that from the organizations that are following this, we are very concerned of the situation. We're worried particularly that 1 month after having publicly announced the public attorneys their intention, just yesterday having a meeting to explain to the families what's going on. This is very delicate and human rights are being violated, not just as they disappear, but also of their family members. There needs to be recognition of indigenous people, a culturally appropriate awareness and response that has appropriate language that can convey what is going on, and that also has a historical understanding and awareness of the harms done to this community. And so on the part of these organizations, we will be pushing forth, moving forward with our solidarity with the Yaqui community and pressuring the government to provide the information that's been requested and to be more in line with progress presets of human rights in terms of public rights and also in terms of the women and the family that are in search for their family members. So with that, we conclude our press conference and we invite people to be in communication with us so that we can continue this solidarity that we have with the Yaqui community. I want to thank the IPRI team that is connected from different parts of the world, from the Philippines, from Costa Rica, supporting us on this, and also Linguismo Study that has helped with the translation. If there's anybody that would like to share this press conference in English, we have that on recorded so that we can make that available to you. So thank you very much to all. And thank you.